So a very warm welcome to our masterclass, and we'll get started. So very, very warm welcome, everybody. We have a lot to cover today in our masterclass. We also have some guests on today who usually aren't in our masterclass or in our study group, but because of what's happening on the planet at the moment, we wanted to provide as much support and impact to our community that have studied with us. And I know many of you on the line haven't been with us for a while or are actually on our mailing list, and you have only had a taste of what we are doing to support the people who are wanting to expand their consciousness or who are just beginning to understand maybe what the teachings and technologies of Grigori Grabovoi are. So I just wanted to start from a place we left in the masterclass we had 2 weeks ago. And I know some of you haven't been there before, so I wanted to just briefly discuss a couple of things to put this in a nice framework for you. Last time we came together, we spoke about how people's belief systems, your thoughts, are fueled by your words and your emotions, and all these are being created right in front of you, whether you consciously or unconsciously realize it or not. And how you know how in harmony you are in your inner world, you just need to have a look at your outer world around you, because anything that is out of harmony in your inner world, that's fueled by your belief systems, emotions, words, is being created with people and situations right around you, in front of you, because your soul is communicating to you via your consciousness. And sometimes you don't pick up on the messages along the way until it's right in the physical, right in front of you. And it's when it's in front of you that you have to do something about it. You either do that or put your head in the ground and not want to face it, but it will always be there. So anything that's happening right in front of you is really something for you. Now, globally, in front of us is a lot of people in fear. And because the fear also exists still in our consciousness, still within us, it's a projection of what's happening. And I just wanted to cover a little bit about what's happening out there, because it has been interesting to be on the journey of watching how quickly people have been cordoned off in their own home, in isolation, how quickly people fall into line, do as they're told. And you might be from the opinion like, well, we're doing this globally to help each other. And yes, there is that element, but there's a whole other story that's really going on. There are many different threads you can grab onto. I'll give you an example of one of the threads, for instance, that's happening in Australia that I would say most Australians have no idea around. Back in 2015, there was a royal commission. The government had a commission to look into the pedophilia that was happening within Australia and the child trafficking. And in the Woods Royal Commission, they had hundreds and hundreds of people come and talk about their experiences that they'd had at boys' homes or via perpetrators. And we know there've been perpetrators in the Catholic Church, but not just there. And in the Royal Commission, one of our senators, Senator Heffernan, said to the commission at the time, I have a very, very long list of people who are being identified as pedophiles. I have on this list people who are judges, politicians, ex-prime ministers, that number of people have talked about. And he said, what concerns me is our current Prime Minister has put a suppression order on that for 90 years. And what that means is you and I and everyone else are not allowed to know about what has been going on because they don't want to actually tell us. Now, that's just one thread. It's not just happening in Australia. We pretty much know right across the world there is a human trafficking, pedophilia ring in all sorts of different areas. And in America, I know that they've talked about it, certainly, and I think you're going to hear a lot more about it. I know they had Pizzagate in America talking about that. And even just to think about that as a theme, it's pretty heart-wrenching when you think that there are children coming to the earth and they're experiencing some absolute terror at the hands of some people that are definitely not harmonious and have a totally different thinking perhaps to you and I. And it's hard to actually believe that that would happen. But what's also really hard to believe is that the people that are looking after us, supposedly our governments, our politicians, aren't really working for the harmony of the people if they're wanting to keep a lot of things silent. And recently, this last weekend on 60 Minutes, I don't normally watch it, but somebody messaged me in Victoria. We've had one of our political parties just shown that they've been absolutely rorting the system, deceiving the people, and many people have been sacked because of it. So there are all these little things that are going on through the world. And let me pick up on a couple of other little themes. You'll have people that want to have a choice about whether they vaccinate or don't vaccinate. Now, it's not anti-vaccinations, it's actually the freedom to choose whether you want to have it or not. And then you have Bill Gates that says, well, actually, we're not going to let anybody free again until we've actually vaccinated 8 billion people. That's not freedom of choice. And by the way, we will microchip you. So that really upsets a lot of people who want to have a choice where they have a vaccination. And then you have the other thread. For instance, another theme out there is 5G. We know that 5G technology, according to the telcos, is really fast internet. When it's running fiber optics, it's really good. But when you're sending out microwaves to via your phones, via 40,000 satellites that Elon Musk wants to surround the Earth, when you've got microwaves that are beaming 60,000 hertz at you, then it starts to have a health challenge, which have a very similar thing to the virus that's going around. And then there is the virus. Here's another theme. Most of you won't know it's actually been a created virus. You don't have to believe me, do your research. It was created in the UK and by a scientist in Harvard University in America. And that's another theme. So there's all these little themes. Now, collectively, what's happening to people? They're in a lot of fear about supposed dramas that are happening in the outer world. And it was very interesting this morning as I went to get my coffee. You can see how much fear is still in people, even though we're starting to get back to normal. This one woman, she just did not want to go near me as if I had the plague. She was going to make sure she was not only just 1.5 meters, she was going to be two meters away from me. And you could see it, she's looking around to make sure that she's not going to actually pick it up. And you could say that's being considerate to that, but all I was observing was just how much fear she was actually in. Now, I don't know whether you think I'm off my tree, conspiracy theorist or whatever. I don't mind. But what I am is a very good researcher, and I do my homework, and I don't listen to what I'm being told as gospel. I actually go and do my own research and see what's going on. So, and that's what I would suggest for you. Don't just listen to what you're being told, because actually we're being very, very quickly controlled. I don't know whether it bothers anyone else to notice how quickly, as every man, woman and child on the planet has been able to be locked down and controlled. And in Australia, we've had such a small number of people actually die, just over 113 people. And the whole economy has stopped. And I know there's the whole thing about, oh, well, we've controlled it. That's what concerns a lot of people that I talk to, is this level of control and fear that people are in. And so collectively, we are all connected in the quantum field. And at the moment, a lot of people are resonating fear into the field. And when you have people in fear, you are also able to control them. Now, interesting, in the last couple of days, I don't normally answer our home phone here in the office, but I've had probably 5 calls from somebody who speaks Chinese, and I've had somebody listen to the call who's threatening me if I don't hand over some money, some terrible things are going to happen. Yesterday on my personal phone, I had somebody else threatening me about I'm going to be checked on, and there's something illegal that's happened, and they're demanding money. It's just, and if I was somebody who wasn't awake and heard that, I'd be thinking, what have I done? Why do you want to get me? And this is some of the predators that prey on people when they're actually in that state. And so collectively, there's a lot of emotion that is actually being played in the matrix that is actually keeping people in fear, keeping them small and isolated. And the biggest thing that humans need is touch, connection, and this is why we've been having these masterclasses, just for that reason, to keep people connected, not keep them isolated. Now, another good thing though, amongst all this is, I'm not sure if you're aware that the planet Earth has a frequency. It's called the Schumann resonance. And the resonance of the planet is usually 7.83 hertz. And over the last 18 months, 2 years, the resonance of the planet has been shifting way beyond that frequency. And this was a snapshot I took a few days ago, because today it's back down to 10 hertz. But during this day, on the 13th of June, the frequency of Mother Earth was up at 59, 71, 61, 73. So what does that mean? Well, actually, the planet is awakening, the planet is lightening up, the planet's vibration is rising. And if the planet's vibration is rising, so are all the people that are on it, which is you and me. So it's like the frequency is being turned up. And for some people, they're just popping. They're just popping as if they're awoken from a dream. Some people are experiencing, while all the drama and chaos and fear is going, there's another lot of people who feel excited, calm, and so much love in their heart. And when you think of it, how can there be these two different dynamics? Well, there is, because they've I guess got to a level of expansion. They're actually feeling the resonance from Mother Earth. So the Earth is actually vibrating lower, and higher. And if you can think of it like a torch in a dark room, Where there have been lower frequencies, and we can talk about it from emotions. I mean, the lowest frequency as far as hurts in emotions is shame. And shame is, I'm not good enough. That is 20 hertz. That's probably one of the lowest emotions that you can have. Whereas when you're in your heart, you're in 528 hertz. So what's happening is the torch is being shone, and collectively any darkness that's on the earth, anything that is not in harmony, is now being exposed. And over the next, definitely until November, you're going to see a lot more of this dark part of humanity being exposed. And it's almost going to be too much for people to actually handle. Some people just won't be able to comprehend that from at all. So, but we're definitely, as a planet, and also as a collective, are being influenced, and we're all waking to the higher states of consciousness, which is actually our normal way of being. It's just that we've had so many different overprints over the years, and I'm not just talking about 10 or 20 or 30 years, I'm talking thousands of years. The systems that have been in control have been in control for thousands of years. I mean, one of the other themes that is happening that you might know about is the global financial reset. We're in a debt system. It's called a fiat system. Every man, woman and child is in debt. And if you have or especially in Australia, if you have a housing loan, you're actually in an illegal debt with the bank. Anyway, I won't go into that. But anyway, there's a lot of, there's a global financial reset that started to happen back in the 50s when JFK actually started to bring in its own currency and erase the fiat system. And unfortunately, he was executed, so that didn't happen. So what's happening is there's a shift from the fiat system, and back probably a couple of months ago, Donald Trump got rid of the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is a private consortia of bankers. It's not a government agency, and took the money back into Treasury. And that's happening around the world. And we're moving to a thing, you mightn't have heard about it. In America, it's called NESARA, N-E-S-A-R-A. Go and have a look. But everybody else that's on the planet is GESARA, G-E-S-A-R-A. Go and do your homework, people. Go and have research. This is what's happening. Now, one of the things that they want us to do is to move away from money and actually have a credit card or have a digital currency. And this is not actually a good thing, because somebody can control that with a press of a button. So anyway, do your research, just giving you some topics to go and have a look at. As I said, I don't talk about anything I haven't researched thoroughly. So, all right, let's move on. So our consciousness actually runs our biology. Every cell in our body is listening to our conscious and unconscious thoughts. It's not a physical thing. It's an energy we create that communicates with every cell in our body, but not just that, it communicates into the field. So if you can think about every time you have a thought, you are actually sending a signal out into the information field, out into the matrix, and they call it a biosignal, a standing wave of your consciousness. And you're influencing the field, you're influencing matter around you. And this signal is like a wave. If I could show you under a microscope, you would actually see photons of light leaving your physical body and moving away from you. So you create an energy that has an impact in your internal world. So for instance, say you had the feeling that you were not good enough, that you are not worthy, then you're actually communicating that information via a frequency to your cells. And the cells don't know the difference. They're just following the instructions. And so if you're saying you're not good enough, it's actually a very low frequency for your cells. Now, one of the reasons we have lower emotions is because we are looking into an external source to get validation or to make us feel better, or that's just what we're being taught. But actually, what has happened is we've been kept very disconnected through maybe the church or different systems where they say you need to come to me before you can have access to source energy, creator, God, whatever it is for you. And that's not true. We're not disconnected. In fact, every photon of light that we have in our body is the essence of the creator. It's not somewhere else. So when we get into dis-ease in the body, we often, go through a process perhaps in our thinking is like, why has this happened to me? I've done all the right things. I've eaten the right food. What is it? Why am I like this? And in those moments when you're questioning or even get to the point of saying, why is the source energy, why has creator abandoned me? And it isn't that at all. Life is not working against you, it's working for you. And when you disconnect yourself, you're actually then quite often then in your left brain trying to work it out. And your left brain is a very, very slow processor. It never comes up with solutions. It only has more questions, and it only operates at 23 pulses or bits per second, where your heart brain, where the Heart Maths organization in the US have done so much work. They know that the heart actually emanates a signal and communicates with the brain, not the other way around, that the heart actually has a brain, it has a memory, and the heart actually feels things 3 seconds before it actually happens. The speed of your heart, as far as information goes, is 6,000 pulses per second, or 6,000 bits per second that it can perceive. Your heart perceives so much more. Yet most of us live our life in our left brain trying to work it out. What we see in the outside world is energy, electricity, that our light is, our eyes are picking up and sending signals to a very dark place right at the back where we create images and pictures. So for instance, if in your consciousness you hold an image that you're going to regrow an organ in your body, and you start running a movie, for instance, of imagining you're taking a stem cell and placing it into the point of creation of the organ, because let's face it, you grew your organs once, the information was there, it didn't go away, you can do it again. So if you put a adult stem cell that you've created in your consciousness and you imagine it and you can see it into the point where the creating of the new organ, and you watch in your consciousness over a period of time, and you can see that the organ is growing, and maybe you can feel it growing in your body, and then you get to a stage that it's done. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is real and what isn't real. Now, I can tell you, one of our students has regrown her surgically removed ovaries and had medical evidence and 3 tests to show that the organ is totally there now. There's nothing wrong. Now, she didn't go to the medical industry and say, I've regrown my organs. because they might just think she's a little crazy. But she has 3 documentations. Why? Because the information is inside of you to be able to do that. And the power is what you see in your consciousness. So Yelena, who grew her surgically removed ovaries, spent at least 15 minutes a day getting into some practice. She'd done work with us. She'd studied with us intensively. And so she just spent the time each day watching and noticing her organs starting to grow. She was in full belief that she could do this because she'd done some other processes, controls we call them, that gave her sort of like mental tics, like I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. So when she came to regrowing her ovaries, she was on the platform of, I know I can do this. And so she did this over a period of 3 months. She could feel the process. So even in her consciousness, she was watching it like you would be watching a movie outside of herself. So she was sort of watching it in front of her and watching it happen. She could feel it happening in her body. And then she said, I got to a point where I just knew it was done. And that's what happens. You do. You get to a point that you absolutely know in your whole being that it's done. That is the power that we have. And without keep going on about what's happening in the outer world, and that's what I guess some dark systems don't want people to realize, that power that they have. Because here's the thing, when I have many people contact me who are in all sorts of states, in fear or whatever, and I say this one thing to them: if you were in control of the whole planet, or all the people, would you need to keep imposing more pressure on them, putting them in tighter and tighter boxes? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't need to impose that. So what's actually happening is humanity is waking up. People are starting to realize, what, I can grow my organs? What, if I've got disease, I can cure it myself? What else can I do? And this is what is happening for humanity. They're waking up and starting to realize, actually, I'm more powerful. And this is what, in spiritual terms, for those in the spiritual community, have been framing as the Great Awakening or the Golden Age. In fact, we're just remembering the very thing we were many eons ago. We are the 6th civilization on this planet, what they call the 6th root race, from Madame Blavatsky's work, a Russian woman from back in the 1800s, I think. She did some beautiful writing. So we're at the point where we could really, as a civilization, totally implode and kill ourselves. But that's not going to happen at all. There are more people waking up and starting to step into that. So what do you have control of? Well, you have control of your thoughts. You have control over your emotions, and you have then control over the information that you send into the field. One of the important things to realize and to start with is with yourself. One of the issues, well, I think the major issue with everybody, whether they have cancer or a disease or anything, is that they've fallen out of love with themselves, that they expect it to come from someone else or get it from somebody else, and they don't have a daily practice or a daily ritual of self-love. And that can be sitting down and journaling, going into nature, doing something that you love, but you put you first before you put the outer world first. And, you know, for some people, it's really hard to do that when they've been very good at giving and not very good at receiving. And we've certainly been taught to, give. And you often see people with breast cancer who are very good at giving. You know, my husband Brian had stage 4 cancer back in 2010. He's very good at giving and wasn't very good at receiving. And of course, when you're in hospital for 6 months, what happens? You have to receive. And he got to see how loved he was. And he really fell in those 6 months, he fell in love with himself again. be it that he was unconscious for a while because he had 35 rounds of chemo, and they certainly did a lot to try to get his body to a state. One of the things they said to him as he left hospital was, "You'll be on dialysis for the rest of your life." And in his consciousness, he said, "No, I've had enough of dialysis. You're going to have your cancer return in 2 years. You're going to be dead in 4. There were 3 programs that they implanted into Brian's information field, into his consciousness. And luckily, he had a strong feeling within him that he knew, no, that's not my reality. That's not going to happen. And that's exactly, he hasn't let somebody else tell him that this is what's happening. It's not his reality. And we've met other people who understand that. And so this is about us returning to our power. Let me put this another way from a scientist point of view, because I had somebody email me the other day and said, I have all Grigori Grabovoi's number codes for producing money. Can you tell me the couple of specific number codes that I can use to actually get money dropping into my bank account? And also, can you help my husband with his business? And I wrote back to her and said, there's no magic number code. You actually influence this. So for instance, when we use number codes, a number code is a series of frequencies together that go into the information field that harmonize the information that is not in the norm. So it's like a key and a lock. And if I'm putting out a number code for cash flow, so I'm putting into the information field, I want to attract cash flow. And let me say, one of the reasons for using number codes is because numbers are universal and they don't have emotions and they don't get upset with each other. So this is just pure coding that is right through all of our universe. Everything in nature, our human body, is actually to a mathematical sequence, a geometric form. So we're just working with the coding of the universe. But if you're putting out, you want cash flow, but your inner state is, and your thought is, I have no money, I have no money, I have no money. You're actually sending that information via your thoughts, via standing wave, into the information field. And that's what you're negating the number codes you're using to attract cash flow to you. So let me put it this way. Your thoughts and emotions trigger a switch within you. And depending on what your emotional state is, say you're not good enough, so we know that that's only 20 hertz, your battery, your reserve, your even cell, the energy in that is actually quite low. And then you project that out into the world as, well, we use a light bulb here, but your light, so that your light is actually quite dim. And so it makes it very hard to shift things. So for instance, if you're trying to restore your health and you have this negative information, negative thought patterns, low energy, it's going to take you a while to get a result. If somebody has a really high, they've done a lot of work and actually the light of their soul is shining through, then it doesn't take very long. And in fact, the miracles that we believe are miracles are just technologies until we understand how they actually work. So this is why it takes, when it comes into the physical body, it takes a while to sort it out. It's like there's information that comes through as light into our consciousness that creates energy. And we perceive it mentally, emotionally, chemically within our body, and then it turns up in our physical body. And when it's in the physical body, it takes a little bit longer to sort it out. Until you build up and we're all doing this, we know the planet is lifting, and when we get to a state when we'll be able to do it very, very quickly. And different people have different successes. One of the important things is to remember is what platform you're on when you're doing this. So meaning, what emotional state are you on? Are you in your head? If you are in that place, then don't do it. Don't go through and do a process. Don't do this control. You're actually in the wrong place to be. You are far better to go off in nature, where you are receiving energy from nature around you, because nature holds everything that you need to restore you. This is interesting that they want to keep people out of nature, away from the sun. The sun is so important, not just from vitamin D, but for a whole other, has a whole other spiritual meaning. Totally. It's very important because the sun goes into our pineal gland, and our pineal gland is what helps to produce our clairvoyancy, etc. It's a very important gland in our body. So if you're not in a good platform, don't do the control. You're better off to go in nature or do something that you actually love. So the more that you can understand yourself when you're calm, when you're relaxed, when you're not emotional, when you're in that state, and then you go out into the world and all of a sudden you have a headache or you're feeling nauseous, most people would go and reach for a Panadol and say, oh, what is that? That is information that you have attracted into your 5 meters sphere of where you create. So around you is a 5 meter sphere of where you send your thoughts out in front of you. This is your field of creating. This is part of the technology of Grabovoi. In your area of perception is in front of you. And you pick up now information from others. Now, anybody here that is an empath or is sensitive like me, you can be around people and feel quite normal, and then all of a sudden you're starting to feel tired. You're having thoughts that you don't normally have. You have headaches, all those sort of things, which is actually a gift, but it has a double-edged sword. You need to know how to manage your energy and then understand what happens when you're around other people. And the more that you can be centered in yourself, when thoughts come into your mind, and especially at night, if you've been around a lot of people who are negative, for instance, and you start to go to sleep, but your mind is chattering away and you're thinking things that you don't normally do, that just tells you you've picked up somebody else's information and you're working it off. So important to realize what platform you're on. Need to be in a state. I've had a very strong mental body, so I've had to disconnect my left brain from trying to be in control, and the left brain wants to be in control. He thinks it's the captain of the ship, and I've had to have a little quiet talk with it and tell it to shut up. I'm not talking to him. I'll let him know when I wanted some directions. And the more that you can drop into your creative side, your right brain and your heart brain, the more you can engage with your heart. Now, the heart maths people have a beautiful 3-step process to get you into your heart, because they've done a lot of research. They've found a lot of people, when you ask them to go into their heart, in fact, they were in their head imagining what it would be like to be in your heart. So their 3-step process is you actually touch your physical heart. So you bring awareness to it by touching it. And then you spend 1 or 2 minutes doing deep breathing. And this signals to the body that you're not in a state of fight or flight, you're actually calm. So it has a physical reaction on the body. And then you bring up a memory around 4 words: care, compassion, gratitude, and acceptance. Those 4 words, if you bring up a memory where you had, for me, for instance, it's when my grandkids were young and I'd go to the house, open the door, and they'd come running up the hallway and jump into my arms. There was a lot of care there. And when you can connect to that in your memories and it brings up an emotion, that is when you're in your heart, and that is the platform then to actually do your control. So it's a little thing you practice, but it's just helps you to get on the right platform, because most people, even though they start off with words with the Grabovoi's teachings to try to train their consciousness, the emotional state, what's happening in the inner world isn't on the right platform. So this just helps you to get there very quickly. All right, now just going back to what I was talking about before about your consciousness, your cell has a consciousness. So if your emotional state, you have I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, shame, guilt, or suffering, and there's not probably one person on this call who hasn't at some stage perceived that they've had some suffering, whether it's been emotionally, mentally, physically, in some way, has had that program in their consciousness. And unfortunately, then the consciousness of the cell takes up that and starts to, as I said before, starts to lower the function of the cell. And our cells are only picking up and listening to our conscious thoughts. And this is how dis-ease is set up. So the more you can watch your thoughts, and I used to worry a lot in the past. And what I'd noticed myself is just at the stage where my mind would start to pick up a thread of worry. And I knew how it goes. I start to worry about it. I run things through my head. I spend a lot of time and a lot of energy worrying into what might happen. And then you'd wake up the next morning and you'd feel absolutely exhausted. So I just caught myself at the moment that I was starting to pick up the thought, and I realized, oh, here I go again. Actually, that's not a reality. So I just consciously watch my thoughts and then totally shift it to something else. Distract yourself, go for a walk, go into nature, whatever it is. But I totally had to do that. And at the moment, it's really important to watch your thoughts. So this true pandemic that's happening is the suffering people are feeling. And it's like, when I saw this a week or so ago, it's almost like there's a blanket, a matrix over the whole collective. I see a lot to do with matrices. I mean, many years ago, Anne used to come to me as a client. Don't know whether you know this, Anne. And I used to see number codes and matrices, and I had no idea what I was seeing. And now I understand what a matrix is. A matrix is the information of time and space. On each particular surface of it is information. So I'd start to see this, and this is what I saw recently. It's almost like there's a blanket, there's a screen of information that is in the collective consciousness of suffering, and it's very easy to move it, and we're going to do that today. You just need to trust that we're going to do that. And interesting, on the Sunday night study group, the feelings people had in their physical body when they were doing this. So we'll go through this. So I just took the suffering from Wikipedia. It's a pain in a broad sense, maybe an experience of unpleasantness and aversion associated with perception of harm or threat of harm in an individual. Suffering is the basic element that makes up the negative balance of affective phenomena. The opposite of suffering is pleasure or happiness. So suffering is often categorized as a physical and mental issue, and it's embedded in the consciousness of the collective. Now, why it's important for us to spend some time moving it from the collective, because, as I said, very shortly, up until November and maybe a little bit longer, you're going to see a lot more of this theme, and we need to remove it for sure. I found some number codes of Grabovoi's from his book, Number Series for Psychological Norming, when I went in, that I sent out in the original email, and I can send it again with the replay. It's called Pathological Experiences, so experiences bringing suffering. So here is the number code to negate in your matrix, in your 5 meter field, where there are programs and information of suffering. Now, what happens is that structure of suffering, when you start to get experience, so people who've already on this call who've already studied with us, you'll start to see that those things like suffering or fear or I'm not good enough sit like geometric forms as a geometric structure in your consciousness, in your information field. And it's not hard to actually start seeing that. And we don't get into the emotion of it or anything. We just see, okay, here's the geometric form, and now we remove it. And one way of removing it is using a number code. So it's sending a signal to erase the information. The next one is suffering distress. Oh, and I just want to make a comment. In this pathogenic experience, that you'll actually see the number code has a gap. So it's 6489416. It has a space, so you need to write it or say it with a space. 8918. So 6489416 space 8916. It's written like that because between the spaces is where the new information of eternity is actually flowing. So it allows new information to happen. Then there's suffering distress, 548317489417. And so this is about physical, moral torture. And unfortunately, there are many children who unfortunately are being tortured at the moment. I won't go into that, but anyway. And their suffering source. So the source of the suffering, 318489519614. So you can also understand that when you speak a number code, you are also sending out a frequency, a standing wave. Each number has a frequency. Now, I'm really into number codes. If I repeat a number code a number of times, I'll start to hear if I actually say the wrong number code, because it creates, it's like singing a song into the field. You know, I heard something yesterday. I was listening to something, and it was all about, they were talking about prayer. And many of us understand what prayer is. It's asking for a request to something outside of ourselves to deliver. And I don't want to equal Grabovoi's technology to a prayer, but what we do with this is we're also asking for information to be harmonized, but we're not externalizing it. We know that we're the source that can change it. So we are stepping into where we are as creators and saying, remove all suffering or sources of suffering for myself and the collective. It's a direct order. It's this is what I want. And the information field doesn't know any different. So it's not, I'm going to ask my angels and if it's okay and if I'm worthy. No, you are worthy. You are part of the creator, part of source energy. You're nothing different. It's just your perception of yourself. So number codes are important. The words that you speak are important. The next thing to watch, hang on for a sec, is what you're watching on the television. And we, you know, all at the moment when we've been locked down, probably been listening to the television, and they're just sending out one part of it. Remember, television, tell a version of what's happening from our vision. You are being programmed. That's why they call it program. One of the things to be aware of on your research journey is what we call cognitive dissonance. Not a Grabovoi word, but let me just you understand this. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong, and when they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted because it creates a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable, because it's so important to protect the core belief. They will rationalize, ignore, and deny anything that doesn't fit with that core belief. And this is why people get upset when their strongly held beliefs are challenged. So when I say to you, you are the creator and therefore you cannot, you can change everything, you have the power to do that. People have such a strong core belief, no, I couldn't, it's not me, you know, I need to go to the doctor, or I need to go to the priest, or whoever. No. You know, as I said before, some people might consider me, some of my thinking, a conspiracy theorist. And when we were out to dinner last night and we're talking about certain things, and it's so interesting how people want to argue their belief, because to change it, it's going to be hard. And I think that's what will happen over the rest of the year. You'll see a lot of people suffering from cognitive dissonance. Okay, what's the opposite to suffering? Benefit, blessings, comfort, contentment, ease, happiness, health, joy, pleasure, fortune, euphoria, prosperity, success, hopefulness, heaven, enjoyment, calmness, wealth. These are the areas that we need to start putting our consciousness into. And one of the best ways, because I really do believe that right at the moment we need a daily ritual before we pick up the phone and look at, you know, Facebook or whatever else, to sit down and be in communion with you. And most people that are in our study group or on Facebook in one of my groups will see Brian puts up his soul talk. Every morning he sits down and journals with him, and the words just flow out of his consciousness onto paper. So it's like he's in communion with that. So one of the beautiful ways to start to get your consciousness in that place is, you've probably heard it before, but to sit down and write out 10 things you're grateful for, but not just write out why you're grateful, just the gratitude, it's why you're grateful for. So it's not like, oh, thank you for the day, thank you for the trees, thank you for the butterflies. It's like, thank you for the day. Why? Because it provides me all the nourishment with the warmth of the sun. Those get you into the feelings of gratitude. And when you start to look for gratitude through an exercise like this, you are actually drawing to you the opposite to the suffering that is being programmed into us. I had somebody write to me the other day and said, well, everything that's happening on the planet at the moment must be our karma. It must be because God, that's the way that God is punishing us, or the Creator is punishing us. Hell no, there is no punishing God. You don't have to suffer to go to their so-called heaven. That is BS, people, total BS. There is not a creator or source energy that wants you to suffer your way to heaven. I mean, if you want to see people in heaven and hell, just look at some of the people at the moment. They're in suffering. They're in their own hell. You want to look, people who are in heaven, they actually start to feel the love and gratitude. We're not heading for an ascension to another planet. Actually, heaven on earth is a state of being. And that's what we're doing. And people in the spiritual community will refer this to moving from 3D to 5D, because we're turning the switch and starting to see how grateful we are. And one of the things, if you want to look how quickly Mother Earth is responding, just look, when all the people are taken out of the world and isolated, it starts to heal. You don't see the toxins in the ground. Now, I don't know if anybody else noticed, there were some pictures about the waterways of Venice. And we were there not too long ago, and the water's all back to being beautiful turquoise, and the fish are swimming there. So Mother Earth doesn't need us to rescue her. She's doing a very good job of healing. So these is just to switch your mind. So when your mind starts to go into feeling suffering, then sit down and write. You must write it out and get into the habit of looking, how is this a blessing? What's the gratitude in this for my experience? So we hold the vision for heaven on earth. The more that we can hold the type of world that we want to live in gratitude, the more important it is. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a tool of Grabovoi's that some might have seen before. It's called the Cube Cone Cube. It is a piece of geometry. It doesn't need a number code. Number codes are just one way we use some of Grigori Grabovoi's technologies. The rest is geometry. This is a transformational structure. So it's a creator tool. It's a bit like a hammer, a piece of wood, and a nail. Until you give some conscious thought as to what you want to do, they just still remain three structures. But when you say, I'm going to hammer this nail into the piece of wood, then it's very clear in your consciousness what's going to happen. And this is a bit same like with the Cube Cone Cube. You need to give it an objective, an aim. So it could be transformation of all suffering into the Creator's norm, which is the total opposite of suffering. The Creator's norm means there is no suffering. There's only joy. There's only success. There's only elation. So that's one. Or we could say restore harmony on earth to the Creator's norm. Now, I'm using this as a macro control, which is very unusual when we're in study groups or when you come and do a webinar or a seminar with me, because my focus is very much on you and working with you. And when you realize how much you can change what's happening inside of you and around you, then you can do macro control. But at the moment, when collectively I can have a group of people with the same thought, the science shows that you actually affect the field. And where they've done this in research, where people have meditated with one common thought, actually the crime rate went down in the city. So they can actually measure this. So we're coming together. We're not doing a meditation. We're going to do a concentration, which means that we are putting a laser-like focus into the field with a common objective, and we're going to be using a tool, which is the Cube Cone Cube. And then after that, I'm going to teach you how to use the PRK1U, which is Grabovoi's consciousness device, which he has now made available for everybody to have access to. There are 5 devices, 5 medical devices, which I'll introduce you to. And I will, in the replay, I will send you the link that you can go and use and practice it, but I'll show you the main way that we can do it. So here's what I'm proposing we do for our macro control. And you need to engage via your imagination. So as we say in our community, in the E=VS community, let's play, because we're actually now playing with the fabric of time and space. That's how easy it is when you actually understand. So we're going to imagine that we are somewhere either above the earth or around the earth, and we're looking actually at the earth. And I want you to notice in your consciousness what may be happening around that earth. Now, I know logically you might say, well, I'll have no idea. I need you to allow your consciousness to reveal to you anything. It might be a color, or it might be a structure, or it might be a word or a feeling, but you need to allow that creative part to reveal to you what you're seeing. Now, I know, and the other people who are here in the E=VS community who have studied with us know from experience, what you see in your consciousness is the truth. The left brain just can't go around. So I'm going to start taking you through a full control. So there are words that we use. And then I'm going to ask you to go up, see what you're seeing. Then I'm going to instruct you, we're going to place the cone cube over the whole planet Earth, which means that everybody on Earth will be affected by this. And I want you to watch, because we're going to spend 2 minutes of focus and just allow what any images or feelings come up. And it is normal to also feel an experience. Like on Sunday night when we went through this, some people were feeling stuff in their throat. And so it was interesting. There was few of us that said, yeah, actually we felt it here. Because we exist in a quantum field, because we're working outside of ourselves, like holographically, it still affects us because we still are connected in energy in the field. Everything is information. So we're going to do that, and just let yourself go, and don't think, oh, I can't see it. Now, if you are not a visual person, it's actually going to be better if you keep your eyes open and focus on a blank wall like you're daydreaming, and go to a remote area in your consciousness. So just when you're in that daydreaming space, and start to imagine what I'm going to take you through, and just allow the process. So if you are more a feeler and not a seer, keep your eyes open, because it'll just make it easier for you. That's from my experience with all the 1,000 people I've taught through the world. And that will just make it easy. And just allow the process to happen. Whatever happens is fine. Now, so we're going to use some words that signal to us that we are working with our spirit, because the spirit is the communicator between creator soul and our consciousness, and obviously our physical body. So the spirit is the transporter of the information. So we're going to use words that say, I am in spirit. It means that I'm in my soul and I'm working with the power of my spirit, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm transforming that. Now, before we go there, I'd like some ideas, because I gave you a couple of objectives, but I can use a few different things. So, for instance, the other night, what I got from people, what is it that they want to shift? And people will say, remove all suffering from the collective, restore harmony, allow everybody to feel the breath of life. So people had different things that I could actually put into our control. I'm going to just open up. Does anybody want to add anything else into it, or are you just happy for me to set the objective and we do it? Has anybody specifically got anything that they want to add to our control that's really sitting quite important for them? All right, let me have a look. There's some things in the chat. Prosperity. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. That's a very good one. Prosperity. And when we talk about prosperity, prosperity is everything. It's not just money. It's a prosperous in health, in living, emotions. Yep. Our dynamic influence on reality. Yep. Dynamic influence. Oops, lots coming through. Influence. We're seeing what else? Abundance. Good things and joy. Yep. Break from negativity. Yep. I'll pop that down. Cool the heat of anger. Yeah, well, it might be good to remove all anger. And, you know, understanding some people are getting angry because they're just waking up. And so that's a little process of that. But then there's nice George Soros that's paying people to go out and demonstrate Stop 5G. Go and have a look at George Soros, guys. Very interesting. Controls a lot. Yeah, list is above. Freedom from all restrictions of government. Yeah, freedom. So if we say freedom from all global control systems. Yes. Eileen, you can't hear. If you can't hear, just go out and then come back in. Justice. That will happen. Remove threats from others. Yes. Fulfillment. Yes. Fulfillment is beautiful when you can connect to yourself. You feel that fulfillment. Safe and secure. No vaccines. That's part of the control systems. I think I'll put that under. We can end of pedophilia. Yes, that's also part of, let's say, removal of any darkness, and that's part of the pedophilia. Light, showing the new ideas, and light to recognize the new information, accept it. Yes, that's a good one. Light to accept the new. Yeah, that's good. All right, there's some really great objectives to work with. And we'll work with this twice. We'll work with this twice when we use the PRK. But all right, so get in a comfortable place. I'm going to walk you through this with words. All you need to do is just be relaxed and allow the creative process that happens. And I can tell you, when we were studying with the Russians, we've done quite a lot of studying, and when one of our teachers took 63 people through a control, and everybody had a different, saw something different. And the teacher was saying, yes, that's correct. And it dawned on me, it doesn't matter. Whatever you see in your consciousness is the right answer for you. There's no right or wrong with this. The worst thing that can happen is nothing happens. But anyway, let's go through this. Let's actually bring our hands to our heart, so we actually bring physical awareness. You don't need to leave it there, but just connecting. You're connecting to your physical body, because this is where we are currently. And let's just take some deep breaths that signal to our physical body that we don't need to be in any fear, no need to run, that everything where we currently are and who we are is in perfect harmony and calmness. I'm in spirit. I see and act as the Creator sees and acts. Our objective for humanity: rescue and harmonious development for humanity and the planet. Imagine in our consciousness, we are looking at the earth. You can be out in space looking down, you could be below or at the side, but just notice the earth. And ask in your consciousness to see where there are any programs, especially of suffering. What does it appear to you in your consciousness? Is it a cloudy haze, darkness? Is there any geometric forms that don't quite look like they're in harmony? Does it have a feeling for you? Are you feeling it somewhere in your physical body? We're going to now place this creator structure called the cube cone cube, and we're going to place it right over the earth. And we're going to give this a clear instruction for transformation from darkness to light. Now, I'm going to go through all the objectives while you are focusing on the cube cone cube and the earth, and just notice what may be happening between the two. We're going to hold our concentration for 2 minutes. And I'm also going to put the information you gave us. Sometimes we don't need to put any more than what we've done initially, but because this is we're doing a macro control and you've all got something really important to say, then I'm going to place that also here. Transformation of all the information so that humanity experience prosperity in all. That there is a dynamic influence and all humanity experiences abundance, joy, that all negative information is removed, broken free of the matrix that we live in. The removal of any harmful substances or technologies, such as 5G, vaccines, etc. So that this transformation creates a freedom for all. All dark controlling systems are removed, and that the light is accepted for all. So they step into the newness. There is a harmonization for all on the planet. Be aware of what's happening between the cube cone cube, the planet, and what you may be feeling in or around your physical body. From the area of your heart, send a laser light beam to this cube cone cube. And we finish our concentration with, I send a light pulse of light from where I described, from the area of your heart, and a light impulse from the Creator, and I fix this control according to all parameters of creation and on all levels of reality, now and for all times, today, wherever you are. Whew, that was feeling warm and tingly all over. So that always indicates when you have a feeling that the transformation is happening. Let's just see, how did that feel for you? What did you notice? What did you notice? How did that feel? Anybody want to jump out and tell me what they noticed as far as what was around the planet? Did anybody notice anything? You're all silent now. Come on. Anybody notice anything, or what you felt while you're doing the control? No. Yes.
I felt very powerful, actually.
Oh, did you? Nice.
Yeah. You know, to be able to look on Earth with this huge cone cube over it, you know, and at the end, what you said, sending a light pulse in my body. I thought I felt something around my hips, that area.
Nice. Good. Thank you, Greet. That's great. Thank you. Really good to hear. So Michelle was saying she had an intense red light, and then it transformed into purple, and then peace and so much joy. She was feeling so much peace and joy. Talia was saying white, harmonious energy around me, a lot of heat in my chest at the end. Beautiful. Rebecca, I saw white clouds very pretty, but filled with fine white powder, and it was choking everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Good to see. Good. Thank you. Anyone else?
In the beginning, I felt, and before the control was carried out, my heart was sort of tightened, very tight.
Yep.
And after the control, I'm more relaxed, and I felt the love.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Bee's so experienced; she gets beautiful results. Thank you, Bee. And Halima.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Bee, for being here. Halima's saying, ringing white light vibrations over the cube. Beautiful. Susan, hello, Susan. Swirling waves of energy full of love. Great. Beautiful. Good. Excellent. All right. I know that so many of you got things to say. Let me just now take you to Grabovoi's devices, PRK1U, very Russian. This are available for everyone. He has 5 devices at the moment. 1 to stop aging and for rejuvenation. 1 for HIV, because in the created coronavirus, there was some AIDS virus as well. Protection and cure cancer. Of course, we can't say cure in Australia and other places. To protect against infection of COVID and any coronavirus, because coronavirus is a common cold. And the one we're going to work on, the last one, is for eternal life for all, because we're going to just focus on that for the collective. I'm just seeing Kathy, a vortex of numbers. Oh, beautiful, Kathy, a lady after my own heart. And Melina was saying dancing elephants and sparkles around the earth. Oh, nice, beautiful. All right, let me explain how you use his device. I'm just going to connect it because it's 24 hours free access. You'll see that there is a light here indicating that it is actually working. You'll see 3 lenses. You need to connect with your eyes. Even though this is a device in Serbia, you can be in any location. And by connecting with your visual, with your eyes, you are connecting to the, it's a bit of AI technology, you are connecting to the device. And when we go through our objective, in our perception, our eyes are going to go counterclockwise. It's almost like we're unwinding the information. Now, your eyes don't need to be rolling around in your head. It's just that you're viewing it, and in your perception, your eyes are going counterclockwise. If you're using number codes, for instance, and we were using, say, the number code 71042, which is for harmonizing the present moment. So we would go counterclockwise, 7, and we imagine the 7 in here. The next one would be 1. So we move around again and imagine 1 in here. The next one's 0. So we keep going around counterclockwise. We would see 0 here. 4, we come down here and we would notice 4 in here. And the last one's 2. So we would notice 2 in here. So that's if you're connecting to these devices and you're wanting to work with number codes, that's how you would use number codes. But what we're going to do is just use the device with our focus, with total concentration on just our objective. Now, be aware that when you are focusing, when you're having an objective, that other thoughts may try to come in, like, oh, how much longer is she going to talk for? or some distraction. And when you lock onto this distraction, you actually break that standing wave that you are sending. So let's just have a general objective, which is removal of all destructive systems and harmony for all on the planet. So that's just our consciousness, our aim and our concentration. And we're just going to focus on that sentence. And while we're doing the focus, I just want you've connected here. I just want you in your imagination that your eyes are going around each lens. And then at the same time, so this is really training your consciousness another way, be aware of what you feel in or around your physical body while you're focused on the words. Okay? So I hope that's clear for anybody. I just saw somebody had a question. So let's have a quick look. I feel an explosion of energy within me and outside me, also very powerful, and the dismantling of systems which aim to control our level of consciousness to keep us small and disconnected from our truth. Thanks, Mary. Absolutely, that sums it up perfectly. And can you do this cube, cone, cube just once and it's changed forevermore, and then don't have to repeat it? That's a really good question. Well, think of it this way. I'd like to say yes, and some people, absolutely, but generally most people's consciousness are not quite at that. And until you can see something that's shifting, and this is why you won't see a lot when you're doing a global thing. You might see it, but you're not looking for it. When you're doing a control that's on your physical body, it tends to be easier to have a result very close to you, and you might need to do it once. But remember, for instance, for Yelena to regrow her organs, she had to do a focus every day over a period of time of 3 months for it to be done. So it's not that you're negating that what you're doing is not true. It's just that you're strengthening your signal that's out there, because often there are signals coming in because of your thoughts that are distorting it. When we were in our retreat in February in Thailand, I asked everybody to focus on just one objective. And at that time, somebody played music, the whippersnapper went, the dog barked, and there was a clinking of glasses. And I said to everybody afterwards, how did you go? And they said, perfect, everything was good, we had our aim. And I said, who heard the glasses? Who heard the whippersnapper? Who heard the dog? And people said yes. I said, well, actually now it's broken that standing wave, because your consciousness now is listening to something else. So this is why we keep repeating it, because we're sending into the field what we want. Now, that's our consciousness. We have a collective consciousness who is sending currently at the moment lots of fear and suffering, right? So what we're doing with this is we're negating the structure of fear and suffering that's in the consciousness of the collective. We're trying to erase the signals they're sending. This is why it's not just about us. We're all collectively having an impact on the field that's producing this. And at the moment, we're trying to totally transform that. That's why it's important to have a daily practice, and you can have the same objective to have it done. So hope that answers that. All right, because we'll definitely be over time. So in a minute, let's just do it, and then I'll look for questions afterwards. All right, we are still in spirit, and we're still got done our macro control, which is rescue and harmonious development. So we don't need to do that again. But we do need to now put our eye on this lens here with our objective, which is transformation of all negative systems affecting humanity and restore harmony on earth. I'll repeat that sentence a number of times. You just need to focus and just in your perception, imagine your eyes as going around these 3 lenses counterclockwise. This device is picking up the signals that are going from your consciousness and harmonizing them. It's in training your consciousness how to perceive and think in a new way. So we're going to hold our concentration for 2 minutes. Transformation of all negative control systems and restore harmony to humanity. Be aware of what you may be feeling in or around your physical body while we're focused. Transformation of all negative control systems and restore harmony to all humanity. Transformation of all control systems and restore harmony to humanity. I send a light impulse from my soul, from the area of my heart, and a light impulse from the Creator. And I fix the control according to all parameters of creation and on all levels of reality now and for all time. In the middle of these three lenses, you can't see it. If you could see it, because we have a live device here, you would actually see what looks like heat. It would look like what heat looks like as it's rising off a heater. It's the matter of eternity. You can't see it, but it's actually there. I want you to consciously take a sphere of the matter of eternity. So just by thinking that, I take a sphere of the matter of eternity from here and just place it wherever you want to in your body. It could be your solar plexus, your heart, wherever you feel drawn to place that. So remember, when you're using the devices, you can always take a sphere of eternity. What does that mean? We have an eternal cell in our heart. It's called the hotspot. This is what the medical industry called the hotspot. And if they touch the hotspot, it stops life. So we have an eternal cell, our first cell, that has the spark of the Creator in it. And we can build more eternal cells. When we do that, we actually rejuvenate ourselves. All right. I hope you enjoyed using Grabovoi's device that everybody on the planet has free access to at the moment. And you can go and play with that and practice with your consciousness and you can have your own personal objective. It doesn't need to be a global one. In fact, don't let it be a global one. Please work for your own objectives. It needs to be. Let me just see. Saw another question. So, can you do the cube? Here's it. If you just leave the device on, how does it affect us? Well, Michelle, it actually needs us to connect with our physical eyes. The device is so that everybody in different time zones can actually use it. So we connect with our consciousness, with our physical eyes, and we do the practice there. Thank you very much. Now, good. Taylor was saying, where we only supposed to concentrate on the first circle on the device or move focus around it. So you do connect to the first circle, but in your, you don't need to move from one to the other with your eyes. You just connect to the first one and then just notice in your consciousness as if you're moving from there. So when you're looking at it from a perspective, you can be focused here, but you can be imagining that your eyes are going counterclockwise. So I hope that answers that. Any other questions before we go? Because I really appreciate, we've just gone a little bit over time. Anybody notice anything happening in or around their physical body when they were doing that concentration? She's done it with the numbers. Yes, yes, yes. Good. Good. All right, not sure it applies to this exercise. That's fine. All right. Well, thank you very much for everybody joining in to our masterclass. I hope that gave you a snippet. You can use the cube, cone, cube for anything. It can be, we used it on a macro level and you can use it on a micro level. So it can be as small as you like. You could imagine taking it like a vitamin pill and giving the objective to restore your immune system to the creator's norm. If you've got a heart problem, you could imagine placing it in your heart and giving it the objective, restore the pH of my blood system. So it just needs a clear objective. And it's fast when you start to look at it. Anyway, that's a little bit of a snippet of what we do in the masterclasses. I hope it helped you. Thank you very much, everybody. So Judy's just asking, the last words that I use to finish the control is according to all parameters of creation and on all levels of reality now and for all time. So that's just acknowledging we don't just live in the physical plane. We have many dimensions that we actually live in all at the same time, and so all those areas that we exist in, we're wanting to make this change. Thanks everyone again. Hope you enjoyed a snippet of what we do, and please use it. Please use it. You have access to all this information. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Dolly. Bye.
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 Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alima.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Marion. We'll see you some other time.
Yes, thanks, P.